How many times have you told yourself, I'll start over Monday? I'll get serious after vacation, or maybe after the holidays, maybe after your birthday, or next weekend, or after one last treat. And somehow, one cookie turns into an entire weekend, one missed workout becomes 2 weeks, one vacation became, well, I'll start again next month. Can I ask you something? Have you ever stopped and wondered, why do we do that? Not, why do I eat the cookie? Why do we let one choice convince us to stop making all the others? Because if you've ever found yourself asking, why do I keep starting over? I think today's conversation might change the way you think about healthy living. I want to welcome you back to the Nourish with Regina podcast, where we talk about transforming your plate and transforming your life. If you're new here, welcome. I'm Regina, a certified nutrition coach, wife, mom of 4 adult children, and someone who spent years believing that if I could just become more disciplined, everything would finally fall into place. Along the way, I discovered something that completely changed the way I think about health. Healthy living isn't about chasing perfection. It's about learning to nourish your body, the body God designed for you, with grace, consistency, and joy. Around here, we blend the science of nutrition with real life because, let's be honest, knowing what to do and actually doing it are two very different things. Every Tuesday, I hope these conversations help you understand your body a little better, some of the noise around nutrition, and remind you that taking care of yourself doesn't have to feel overwhelming. Whether you're joining me from today or you've been here for a long time, I'm glad you're here. So pour yourself a cup of coffee, grab your favorite tea, or maybe a big glass of water, because it's going to be hot today, because you know I'm always going to remind you to stay hydrated too. But I want you to get comfortable and settle in, and I want to have a wonderful conversation with you. So before we jump in, if you've been enjoying these conversations each week, I'd love it if you'd take just a minute to follow or subscribe to wherever you're listening. It really does help more people find the podcast, and I have some exciting conversations coming up in the next few months that I don't want you to miss. Okay, can I confess something? I have started over more times than I could ever possibly count. I'm not even sure I could remotely put a number on it, right? I've started over on Mondays, on January 1st, after vacations, after birthdays, weddings, holidays. Honestly, if there was a reason to start over, I probably used it. But here's what's interesting. I don't think I was addicted to dieting. I think I was addicted to the idea that the next fresh start would finally be the one that changed everything. Have you ever felt that? Like somehow this Monday feels different than last Monday, or this month is going to be the month. This planner is going to fix everything, or this meal plan is the one. This workout program is finally going to make you love exercising. I laughed as I wrote that because I've absolutely been that person. I buy the planner. I color code it. I fill it with good intentions. I'd meal prep on Sunday afternoon, fill the refrigerator with healthy food, put my water bottle counter where I couldn't possibly miss it, and even lay out my workout clothes the night before. You know, because this week was finally going to be the week. And honestly, sometimes it was. For a few days, or maybe a few weeks even. But then life would happen. Somebody would bring donuts to work, or we decided to order pizza on a Friday night, or I'd miss a workout because I was super exhausted or busy. We'd celebrate somebody's birthday. Nothing dramatic, just normal life. But somewhere between the first imperfect choice and Monday morning, something happened in my mind. I'd quietly decide, well, I blew it. And I look back now, and that part fascinates me. because I never actually asked myself what I'd blown. One dinner? Sure, maybe. But I really undone every nourishing choice I'd made that week? Had the vegetables I ate on Tuesday suddenly disappeared? Did my walk Wednesday somehow stop counting? Did all the water I've been drinking suddenly no longer matter? Of course not. And yet, that's exactly how I was thinking. The funny thing is, I didn't realize I was thinking that way. It just felt normal. It just felt like the rules. The more I think about it now, the more I wonder where we learned all those rules in the first place, or that self talk. Because I don't remember anyone ever sitting me down and saying, Regina, if you eat one cookie, you should probably just give up until Monday. Nobody taught me that, at least not directly. And yet somehow I believed it for a lot of years, maybe even decades. And it was exhausting. Not because eating healthy was exhausting. Thinking about eating healthy was exhausting. I don't know if you've ever experienced this, but there was a time in my life when food occupied so much space in my mind. I was constantly negotiating with myself. Can I have this? Am I allowed to eat this? If I eat that now, what does that mean for dinner? I've been good today or I've been bad today. I'll make up for it tomorrow. It was like there was this running commentary in my head all day long. And honestly, I didn't even realize how loud it had become until it finally got quiet. It was one of the most freeing things I've ever experienced. Not because I suddenly had all the answers. Actually, it was kind of the opposite. I suddenly had a whole bunch of new questions. And if you've listened to this podcast for a while, you'll probably know that's kind of how my brain works. When something really doesn't make sense to me, I get curious. I start reading, I start asking questions, I start researching and going down rabbit holes. Sometimes a few more rabbit holes than I probably should. But this question wouldn't leave me alone. Can I ask you something? Why is it that one cookie can convince us that we've failed, but one salad doesn't convince us that we've succeeded? Have you ever thought about that? I hadn't. Not until then. Because if healthy living is really about the choices we make consistently over time, then why did I spend years believing that one imperfect choice ruined everything? That it had more power than all of the healthy ones that came before it? It doesn't even make mathematical sense. If I make 20 nourishing choices this week and one less nourishing choice, why am I letting that one outweigh the 20? Who decided that that's how this works? Honestly, where did we even learn that? I started thinking back over the years, all the diets, all the magazine covers, all the cheat days, and good foods and bad foods. The idea that we had to be good all week, so maybe we'd earned dessert on Saturday. You know what? Now that I'm saying that out loud, it sounds exhausting and a little bit ridiculous. And maybe you've felt that too. Maybe you've spent years feeling like every meal was some kind of, like every bite you take was either moving you towards success or proving that you're a failure. If that's you, I want you to know something. I understand. I've totally been there. And I also want you to know that I don't think that that's how healthy living was ever supposed to be. Because think about it. When was the last time you watched a toddler learn how to walk? They don't stand up, fall down, and then look at their parents and think, well, I guess walking isn't for me. No, they get back up. They wobble, they fall again, they cry, they keep trying. Nobody expects perfection. We celebrate the progress, right? So why, somewhere along the way, do we stop offering ourselves the same grace? Why do we expect ourselves to do something that we would never expect from someone we love. I couldn't stop thinking about that. And the more I thought about it, the more I realized maybe the problem wasn't my lack of discipline after all. Maybe, just maybe, I had been delivering a story to myself that simply wasn't true. So I started reading. Not because I was looking for another diet. Honestly, I think I had tried all the ones that were available to me. And I was pretty tired of diets at that point. I wanted to understand why my brain kept convincing me to quit. And that's when I discovered something that made me stop in the middle of reading and say, well, that explains a whole lot. Psychologists actually have a name for what I'd been doing all those years. It's called all or nothing thinking. Sometimes you'll hear it called black and white thinking. And when I first read that, I honestly laughed a little, not because it was funny, because it felt like somebody had secretly been reading my mind. I thought, wait, this isn't just me? Apparently not even close. In fact, one of the most common thinking patterns psychologists see, and once I understood, I couldn't stop seeing it, is that a lot of people do this. Not just around food, everywhere. Have you ever had one busy day where you didn't answer emails and suddenly you feel completely behind and overwhelmed? Or maybe you missed church one week and think, I really need to get back into that. Or you skip one workout and suddenly you feel like you've lost all of your progress. It's amazing how quickly our minds jump from I missed one to I have failed. And those aren't the same thing. Not even close. You know, one of those things that I love about learning is that sometimes it gives you language for something you've experienced your whole life but never knew how to explain. That's exactly what this was for me. For years, I thought I had a motivation problem. Turns out I had a thinking problem. And the more that I thought about that, the more compassion I started having for myself. Because I realized I wasn't broken. I wasn't lazy. I wasn't lacking willpower. I had simply spent years practicing a way of thinking that wasn't serving me anymore. You know, I think that's important enough to say again. I wasn't broken. I had just practiced the wrong story for a really long time. Have you ever thought about that? Because whether we realize it or not, we're all telling ourselves stories every single day. We can tell ourselves, I am not disciplined. I've never been athletic. I always mess stuff like this up. I have no self-control. I'm either all in or I'm all out. The scary part is that after you've repeated this story to yourself enough times, they stop sounding like opinions and they start sounding like facts. And that's where I think so many people get stuck. Not because they're incapable of change, but because they've confused a pattern with an identity. There's a huge difference. One says, this is something I do, and the other says, this is who I am. And those are worlds apart. I remember thinking about that one afternoon while I was out walking. Now, I need to be honest with you. Exercise has never been my favorite thing. I wish I could tell you I wake up every morning excited to go work out. I don't. It's probably the area where I still have to be the most intentional. I know I feel better when I move my body. I know it's good for my heart. I know it's good for my brain. I know it's good for my mood. I know all of those things. But enjoying it, we're still working on that. Maybe some of you can relate. Anyways, I was out walking and I caught myself thinking, you've never really became the kind of person who loves exercise. And immediately another thought followed. It was quiet, but it changed everything. I was like, what if I don't have to love it? I don't have to enjoy it. What if I become somebody who simply values it? Those are two completely different identities. One says, I'll do it when I feel like it. The other says, this is a part of how I care for myself. And that realization felt incredibly freeing because suddenly I wasn't waiting for motivation anymore. I was making decisions based on the kind of person I want to become. And interestingly enough, that's exactly where some really fascinating research led me next. So, one habit researcher in particular completely changed the way I think about lasting change. His name is Dr. B.J. Fogg, and he founded the Behavior Design Lab at Stanford. And when I started reading his work, one of the biggest takeaways wasn't actually about habits. It was about emotions. And honestly, I wasn't expecting that. I think I assumed habits were all about discipline. Just like buckle down, try harder, be more committed. But Dr. Fogg's research suggested something really interesting. He found that when we repeat behaviors that make us feel successful, not behaviors that make us feel guilty, so when we repeat those things that make us feel successful, we want to keep doing them because they make us feel good. They make us feel like we're doing the right thing and that we're caring for ourselves. So successful habits lead to more successful habits. So I sat with that for a while, and I started thinking about back over my years of dieting. Did guilt ever help me build consistency? I can definitively say absolutely not. It might get me fired up for a day or two, maybe even a week, but eventually I got tired. I got discouraged. And then I started over again. And you know what I rarely celebrated was one good choice. And maybe you've done this too. You eat a healthy breakfast, you drink your water, you go for a walk. And instead of thinking, hey, nice job, go me, your brain immediately jumps to, well, let's see if you can keep this up. We're so quick to move to the finish line, aren't we? It's like we never let ourselves enjoy the fact that we're actually becoming healthier. We're already worrying about tomorrow or next week or whether we'll mess it up again. I want to ask you something. When was the last time you celebrated yourself for something small? Not losing 20 pounds, not running a marathon, just packing a healthy lunch, choosing water instead of soda, going for a 10-minute walk after dinner, getting ready for bed 30 minutes earlier. Those things matter. Actually, they matter more than we think. Because every single one of those choices is casting a vote for the person you're becoming. That's a phrase James Clear uses in his book Atomic Habits. And when I read it, I literally underlined it. He says that every action is a vote for the type of person you want to become. Not every action determines your identity. It simply casts a vote. I love that picture because one vote doesn't decide an election, right? One vote matters, but it's the accumulation of thousands of votes that determine the outcome. Isn't that a relief? Because suddenly one donut isn't deciding your entire future. One workout isn't deciding your future. One salad isn't deciding your future either. They're all just votes. And over time, those votes begin to shape the kind of person you're becoming. That changed the way I look at my own life. Instead of asking, did I have a perfect day? I started asking, what direction am I moving? And those are very different questions. One looks for perfection, the other looks for progress. And here's what's fascinating. Our brain actually responds differently to those questions. When we're constantly looking for perfection, we tend to notice our failures. It's called negativity bias, and it's something psychologists have studied for years. Our brain naturally pays more attention to mistakes than successes, which, if you think about it, made a lot of sense thousands of years ago. Noticing danger kept us alive. But today, the same tendency can make us overlook all the progress we're actually making. I wonder how many of us have done that. I know I have. I've spent entire weeks focusing on one thing I didn't do right, or that I thought wasn't right, while completely overlooking the 20 things I did correctly or successfully or that moved me in the right direction. Have you ever done that? Maybe you drank your water every day, packed your lunch 4 times, cooked dinner at home, walked after work, slept better. But all you can think about is the drive-thru you stopped at on Thursday. Isn't that interesting? Our brains have a way of shining a spotlight on one imperfect moment while leaving all the beautiful progress sitting in the dark. And I don't know about you, but I didn't want to live that way anymore. I want to notice the progress. I want to celebrate small wins, because here's what I'm beginning to believe. Healthy living isn't about giant movements of motivation. It's built on ordinary Tuesdays. It's built by the lunch you packed, even though you didn't feel like it. The walk you took, even though it was only 15 minutes. The vegetables you added to your dinner. The glass of water you reached for. The bedtime you honored. Those little moments don't feel life-changing, but they are, because they are quietly becoming your life. And I think that's where so many of us have been looking in the wrong direction. We've been waiting for transformation that feels dramatic, when most transformation is beautifully, wonderfully ordinary. And that's when I stumbled across another idea that I completely changed the way that I think about consistency. Not because it was complicated, actually because it was so simple. It made me wonder why I'd never thought of it before. Have you ever noticed that it's usually harder to start something than it is to keep doing it? Think about it for a minute. I don't know about you, but convincing myself to go for a walk can sometimes feel like a full-time job. Or more recently, I've been wanting to redo one of our upstairs bedrooms. And I think about doing it a lot, but have I gone up there and actually dug in and got it done? Not yet. Seriously, exercise, though, is probably the area where I still have to be the most intentional. And people are always surprised when I tell them that, because I'm a nutrition coach. And they assume I must wake up every morning excited to work out, drink an amazing protein smoothie, and, seize the day head on. And I wish that were true. I know how good it is for me. I know all the things that exercise does well for my body. I know it's good for my brain. I've read the research. I've talked about the research. And yet, there are still mornings that I get up and I think, I'll do it tomorrow. Have you ever had one of those mornings? I have a feeling I'm not the only one. But here's what's interesting. Almost every single time that I actually talk myself into going to the gym or riding my bike, about 10 minutes in, I'm really glad I did it. Have you noticed that too? It's not just me. It's getting started that's the hardest. Not usually the doing it part, right? The same thing happens with meal prep, or cleaning your house, or making a phone call you've been putting off, or sitting down to pray when life feels too busy. Sometimes the hardest part is simply beginning. So that got me curious as to why. Why is the beginning so hard? As I started reading more about habits and behavior changes, I realized something that seemed obvious now. Our brains love momentum. Think about riding a bicycle. Getting that bike moving from a complete stop takes effort, right? You're pushing hard on the pedals, you're wobbling a little, it feels awkward. But once you're moving, everything changes. Now you're using far less effort to keep going than you did to get started. Healthy habits work a lot like that. The first walk is hard. The 20th walk feels normal. The first week of drinking more water takes intentional effort. A few months later, you reach for your water bottle without even thinking about it. The first time you pack your lunch feels like one more thing on your to-do list. A year later, it's simply part of your routine. And I think that is where so many of us accidentally sabotage ourselves. We keep waiting until we feel motivated enough to start. But what if motivation isn't what creates momentum? What if momentum creates motivation? That was a completely different way of thinking for me because I'd spent years believing I needed to feel inspired before I could take action. But when I look back over my own life, that's really how it actually worked. I didn't feel motivated after I sat on the couch. I usually felt motivated after I got up and did something, even something small. Sometimes it was just putting on my walking shoes. Sometimes it was chopping vegetables for dinner. Sometimes it was filling my water bottle. Nothing dramatic, just one small choice. And isn't that interesting? That the thing that got me moving was almost never a giant burst of motivation. It was one small action, one decision, one vote for the person I want to become. And once I made that first choice, the second choice usually felt a little bit easier. Then third, then the fourth, not because I had suddenly become more disciplined, but because I had created momentum. And the beautiful thing about momentum is that it doesn't care how fast you're going. It only asks one question. Are we still moving? That's something I think we've forgotten. Somewhere along the way, we've started believing that healthy living had to be dramatic. That if we weren't changing everything overnight, we weren't changing at all. Have you ever noticed that? It's almost like we've been conditioned to believe that if we're not losing 10 pounds in a month, running 5 miles a day, or completely transforming our lives by next Tuesday, then whatever we're doing must not be working. But that's not how anything meaningful in life grows. Think about a marriage. It isn't built because of one incredible anniversary. It's built on thousands of ordinary Tuesdays. Think about raising children. You don't become a parent because of one magical conversation. You become a parent through bedtime stories, packing lunches, driving to practices, helping with homework, sitting in waiting rooms, having hard conversations, showing up over and over again. The extraordinary is built inside the ordinary. And honestly, I think our health works a lot in the same way. We keep waiting for this dramatic transformation when most of the transformation is happening in moments that don't feel exciting at all. It's the breakfast you're making instead of skipping it. It's the walk you took after dinner. It's filling your water bottle before you leave for work. It's going to bed 30 minutes earlier so you can get a good night's sleep. Nobody posts those moments on social media. They're not flashy. They're not dramatic. But they're quietly changing you. And I think that's beautiful. Actually, I think that's how God designed so much of life. When you read scripture, God rarely works through overnight transformation. He works through our daily faithfulness. Think about the Israelites gathering manna. He didn't give them enough for a year. He gave them enough for today. Jesus didn't tell us to pray for enough bread for the next 6 months. He said, give us this day our daily bread. Daily. Not someday. Not when you finally have your life together. Today. You know what I find interesting about that? God seems to care an awful lot about today, maybe more than we do, because we're usually living somewhere else. We're either beating ourselves up over yesterday or worrying about tomorrow or next month. Meanwhile, today is quietly waiting for us, waiting for us to notice it, waiting for us to make one good choice. Just one. What if healthy living isn't about winning the week? What if it's simply about caring for yourself today? I don't know why, but that question really resonates with me because winning the week felt overwhelming. Taking care of myself today, that felt possible. Today, I can drink another glass of water. Today, I can add a vegetable to my dinner. Today, I can go for a walk. Today, I can get to bed a little bit earlier. Today, I can choose grace instead of guilt. Those things feel manageable. And isn't that how Jesus so often taught? He didn't overwhelm people with the next 20 years. He met them where they are. One conversation, one meal, one person, one day at a time. I wonder how different our health journey would look if we approached ourselves with that same kind of patience. Not lowering our standards, not making excuses, just recognizing that lasting change is almost always slower than we wish and more beautiful than we can imagine. I think back to tending a flower garden. You don't plant a seed and then walk outside the next morning and expect flowers. There's something about that we've forgotten. Growth is quiet. You don't hear flowers bloom. You don't get to watch the roots grow. But that doesn't mean nothing's happening. And maybe, just maybe, that's where you are today. Maybe you've been making small choices that don't feel like they're adding up much. Maybe you've been drinking more water, taking more walks, cooking a little more often at home, getting more sleep, being a little kinder to yourself. And if you're wondering if any of it matters, can I encourage you? It does. Probably more than you realize. Because every one of those quiet little choices is sending your body the same message. I'm taking care of you. And over time, your body begins to respond to that love and care and nourishment. You know, I keep thinking about something I said at the beginning of our conversation. I'll start Monday. For years, those words felt hopeful to me. Monday was always going to be different. Monday was going to be more disciplined. Monday was going to be more motivated, more successful. Monday was going to be the version of me that finally figured it all out. But now I don't need Monday anymore. I just need my next choice. And honestly, that realization has been one of the most freeing things I've ever experienced. Because life doesn't happen in Mondays. It happens right now. It happens at lunch today. It happens when I decide whether to fill my water bottle again, or if I choose to go for a walk, only 15 minutes, or if I choose to eat a nourishing lunch or do a drive-through somewhere. It happens when I decide to go to bed instead of scrolling for another hour. Life is built on ordinary decisions, one at a time. It's not built on perfect Mondays. It's built every day, every choice. And can I leave you with one thought? Actually, maybe two. The first is this. Healthy people aren't perfect people. They're simply people who keep coming back. They come back after vacation. They come back after birthday cake. They come back after a stressful week. They come back after missing a workout. They come back after making choices they wish they could take back. They just don't stay stuck in guilt. They simply come back. And maybe that's what grace looks like. Not pretending we never stumble, because we do. We're human. Not lowering our standards, not making excuses, just believing that one imperfect choice never has the authority to define who we are. The second thought is one that I hope you will carry with you long after this episode. Your body is not the enemy. It's never been the enemy. It's been communicating with you all along. It's been adapting, healing, protecting, working around the clock without asking for applause. And maybe it's time we stopped fighting it and started partnering with it, started nourishing it, started thanking it. When's the last time you thanked your body for, supporting you and taking care of you and protecting you and moving you? Start caring for your body the way we care for someone we deeply love. Because here's what I know. That kind of care is amazing, and you are worth it. You are worth taking time to prep a nourishing lunch. You are worth drinking more water, even if you don't want to. You are worth going for the walk. You are worth getting enough sleep. You are worth buying the fresh produce. You're worth slowing down long enough to eat a nourishing meal. Not because you're trying to earn your health, but because you have value. Your health isn't something you earn. It's something you steward. And stewardship has never been about perfection. It's about faithfulness. It's about showing up again and again and again. Some days you'll take big steps, and some days you'll take tiny ones. Some days you might feel like you're standing completely still. Believe me, I've been there. And that's okay. Remember the flower garden we talked about? Growth is quiet. Roots grow long before flowers bloom. Just because you can't see change happening doesn't mean it isn't happening. Keep watering your garden. Keep showing up. Keep making the next nourishing choice. Because one day you'll look back and realize that all of those ordinary Tuesdays quietly became a beautiful life. Before we go, I want to leave you with one question. Not something to answer for me, but just something to think about this week. What's one small way, just one, that you can care for the body God entrusted to you today? Not next Monday, not next month, today. Because maybe you don't need another fresh start. Maybe you just need your next nourishing choice. Thank you so much for spending this time with me today. I never take it for granted that you choose to invite me into your walks, your commute, your kitchen, or wherever you're listening from. So if this conversation encouraged you, I'd love it if you'd share it with someone who might need to hear it too. Sometimes one conversation can really change the direction of someone's life. And if you found yourself nodding along today, I'd also love to hear from you. Send me a message, leave me a comment on YouTube, or connect with me on social media. I'm on Facebook and Instagram at Nourish with Regina. One of my favorite parts of this podcast is hearing your stories because they remind me that none of us are walking this walk alone. Thank you so much for spending this time with me today. Again, you are so appreciated. And I'd love to hear from you this week. And what's one Monday you've been holding on to? Or maybe a better question is, what's one small nourishing choice that you're going to make today? Come find me on Facebook and Instagram. Send me a message. Leave me a comment. Next week, I'm excited about this. We're going to have another conversation that has been on my heart for a long time, mostly because of personal experience. But we're going to be talking about autoimmune disease. If you've ever felt like your body is working against you, if you've been diagnosed with an autoimmune condition, or maybe you love someone that has, I hope you'll join me. As someone living with Hashimoto's and fibromyalgia, I know firsthand how frustrating, confusing, and sometimes lonely that journey can feel. But I also know this: your diagnosis is not your identity. And while nutrition isn't a cure for autoimmune disease, it can become one of the most powerful ways we support the body while it's working so incredibly hard for us. We're going to talk about inflammation, the gut-immune connection, and why so many people feel dismissed, and most importantly, what we can do to begin partnering with our bodies instead of constantly feeling like we're fighting them. I think it's going to be one of our most encouraging conversations yet. Until then, remember, healthy people aren't perfect people. They're simply people who keep coming back. Keep coming back to the table, back to the grace, back to the next nourishing choice. As always, keep nourishing your body one simple choice at a time.